The glass slipped from Armand Kestrel's hand and shattered across the marble floor. Nobody moved. Not the two security men standing near the entrance. Not the estate manager carrying a folder behind him. Not even the young woman kneeling beside the enormous staircase with a cleaning cloth in one hand. Armand stared at her, as though the mansion had disappeared around them. She was plus size, perhaps 26 or 27, dressed in the simple charcoal uniform of the temporary housekeeping company. Her dark curls were tied loosely behind her head. A small silver chain rested against her neck. And while she polished the carved base of the staircase, she was humming. Quietly, almost unconsciously. 4 notes. Pause. 3 notes. Then the final rising melody. Armand's face lost all color. He knew that song. There was no recording of it. No sheet music. No public version. His late wife had invented the lullaby 27 years earlier for one person. Their baby daughter. The daughter who disappeared before her 3rd birthday. The daughter Armand had spent more than 2 decades searching for. The daughter everyone eventually told him he had to accept was dead. The maid hummed again. Armand whispered a name nobody in that mansion had heard him speak aloud in years. Seraphine. The young woman stopped cleaning. Slowly, she looked over her shoulder. "My name is Karis, sir." Armand didn't answer. His eyes had fallen to the necklace at her throat. A tiny silver bird, one wing slightly bent. His wife had owned the matching piece. Armand knew because he had commissioned both pendants himself. One for mother, one for daughter. And suddenly one of the most feared mafia bosses in the country could not move. If you enjoy stories where one impossible discovery can reopen a secret buried for decades, subscribe to the channel and stay with this one. Because the young maid standing inside Armand Kestrel's mansion had no idea why the powerful man staring at her looked as though he had just seen a ghost. And Armand had no idea that discovering his daughter would force him to confront the betrayal of someone he had trusted for almost 30 years. Karis Belden noticed the broken glass first. "Sir," Armand still stared. The estate manager, Otho Marin, stepped forward. "Mr. Kestrel?" Armand seemed not to hear him. Karis rose carefully. She had arrived at Kestrel House only 4 days earlier after the estate's regular cleaning contractor lost several employees to illness. To her, Armand Kestrel was simply an intimidating wealthy man she had been instructed not to disturb. The staff handbook contained an entire page about discretion. Never enter his study without permission. Never ask personal questions. Never photograph anything. Never discuss visitors. Karis had found the rules excessive. Then she saw the armed security at the gates. After that, she stopped complaining. Now the owner himself was staring directly at her necklace. Karis instinctively touched it. "Is something wrong?" Armand finally spoke. "Where did you get that?" She frowned. "My necklace." "Yes." Karis looked down. "I've always had it." Armand's breathing changed. "What does that mean?" "I don't know." She gave an awkward little laugh. "It was with me when I entered foster care." Otho glanced sharply at Armand. Armand noticed. "Foster care?" Karis nodded. "I was very young." "How young?" "I don't know exactly. Maybe 3. Armand grabbed the edge of the table beside him. Karis became uncomfortable. "Sir, if the necklace belongs to someone here, I can." "No." The answer came too quickly. She stopped. Armand lowered his voice. "Don't remove it." Karis stared at him. "All right. Who gave it to you?" "I told you." "I don't know. What were you called before Karis Belden?" Her expression changed. "I don't know that either." The room became quiet again. Otho tried to intervene. "Mr. Kestrel, perhaps we should." Armand lifted one hand. Silence. He looked at Karis. "Who raised you?" "A foster mother named Edwina Belden." "Where is she?" "She died 6 years ago." "I'm sorry." Karis looked surprised. The feared businessman suddenly sounded human. "Thank you." Armand glanced at the shattered glass. Then back at her. "You can stop working for today." Karis immediately stiffened. "Am I being fired?" "No." "Then why?" "Because I need to think." She stared. That is not usually something employers make cleaners go home for. Despite everything, Otho almost smiled. Armand did not. "You'll be paid for the full day." Karis folded her arms. "I don't want money for hours I didn't work." Armand blinked. Otho looked toward the ceiling. Nobody argued with Armand Kestrel over money. Karis continued, "If I did something wrong, tell me. You did nothing wrong. Then I'll finish my shift." Armand stared at her for several seconds. Something about this stubbornness hurt. His wife had been exactly the same. Finally he nodded. "Finish." Karis returned to the staircase. But she no longer hummed. Armand walked into his study and closed the door, then locked it. Otho entered through the connecting office 5 minutes later. Armand stood beside an old cabinet he had not opened in years. Inside were photographs. Hundreds. His wife, Lenora. Their daughter. A toddler with dark curls and round cheeks laughing inside a garden. A child asleep on Armand's chest. A tiny girl holding a silver bird pendant while her mother showed her the matching one. Otho stared. "You think?" "I don't know what I think." Armand pulled out one photograph. The child's necklace was clearly visible. Otho looked at it, then toward the hallway beyond the locked door. The resemblance. "I know." Armand sank into the chair. He had been 32 when Seraphine disappeared. 27 years ago. A different man. A different world. He was already involved in the Kestrel organization, but his father still controlled most of it. Armand had been trying to build legitimate businesses. Shipping. Warehousing. Insurance. He wanted his daughter raised far away from the criminal world that shaped him. Lenora wanted the same. Then one autumn afternoon, everything collapsed. Lenora took Seraphine to a children's book festival held inside an old railway market. An electrical fire began in a storage area. Panic spread. Hundreds rushed toward the exits. In the confusion, Lenora was injured. Seraphine disappeared. At first, everyone believed another adult had carried the toddler outside. Then hours passed. No child. No confirmed witness. No body. No proof of death. Just absence. Lenora never recovered emotionally. She died 3 years later after a long illness. Armand kept searching. Police. Private investigators. Hospitals. Orphanages. Border records. Every possibility. Nothing. Eventually, investigators concluded Seraphine may have been removed from the scene deliberately. That possibility haunted Armand even more. Someone might have taken his daughter. Someone might have known exactly who she was. And for 27 years, every trail ended. Until a maid walked into his mansion, humming Lenora's lullaby. Otho closed the cabinet. "We need DNA." Armand looked at him. "We need consent." "You think she'll agree?" "I don't know." "Tell her who you think she is." "No." Otho frowned. "Why?" "Because I could be wrong." Armand's voice cracked slightly. "And I will not walk into that woman's life. Tell her she may be the daughter of a mafia boss, then discover I invented hope because I recognized a song." Otho nodded slowly. "So we investigate first." "Yes." Quietly, Armand stared at him. Very. Across the estate, Karis tried to return to work. It was impossible. Why had Armand Kestrel looked at her like that? Why did he care about her necklace? And why had he called her Seraphine? During lunch, she sat with 2 kitchen employees. One of them, a cheerful pastry cook named Favia Lorne, leaned closer. "Mr. Kestrel spoke to you." Karis raised an eyebrow. "He speaks to employees." "Not like that." "How would you know?" "He walked through the pastry kitchen last month and communicated entirely through nodding." Karis laughed. Favia pointed. "You're laughing, but I'm serious." Karis lowered her voice. "He asked about my necklace." Favia shrugged. "Maybe he likes birds. He called me Seraphine." Favia stopped. The second employee looked up. "What?" Karis noticed both expressions. "You know that name?" Favia immediately became fascinated with her soup. Karis narrowed her eyes. "Favia, I know nothing." "You definitely know something." "Nothing useful." "What?" Favia sighed. "You should ask someone older." "Why?" "Because I like my job." Karis became more curious. That evening she searched the internet. Armand Kestrel had millions of results. Shipping magnate. Real estate investor. Philanthropist. Rumored organized crime connections. She already knew that part. Then she searched. Armand Kestrel Seraphine. The first old newspaper archive made her stomach turn. Business heir's daughter missing after market fire. She clicked. A grainy photograph appeared. Armand. Younger. beside a smiling woman holding a toddler. The caption read, Armand Kestrel and wife Lenora with daughter Seraphine Kestrel. Photographed 6 months before the child's disappearance. Kara stared at the little girl. Dark curls, round face, a familiar expression. Her hands began trembling. She enlarged the photograph. The toddler wore a necklace. Silverbird. Karis grabbed her own pendant. No! She stood abruptly. Her chair scraped across the floor. The foster records she possessed began when she was approximately 3 years old. She had been found at a bus terminal nearly 60 miles from the railway market where Seraphine vanished. No confirmed parents. No birth certificate. No reliable surname. The woman who brought her to authorities claimed she had found the child alone. The woman then disappeared before officials could question her further. Karis had grown up believing she was simply one of thousands of children whose earliest history had been lost. Now her heart pounded. She searched Lenora Kestrel. More photographs. And there it was. The matching necklace. Karis shut the laptop. This is crazy. She repeated it, as though repetition might make it true. The following morning, she almost didn't return to work. Then anger overcame fear. If Armand Kestrel thought she could be his daughter, he had no right to stare at her and send her away without explaining. Karis entered Kestrel House at 7:12 a.m. Armand was waiting in the entrance hall. That alone surprised the staff. She walked directly toward him. We need to talk. 3 security men looked shocked. Armand nodded. Yes. In private. Yes. He led her into a morning room overlooking the East Gardens. Karis closed the door herself, then placed her phone on the table. A photograph filled the screen. Seraphine Kestrel. Armand said nothing. Karis looked directly at him. Who is she? He pulled out a chair. You should sit. No. Karis. I don't want to sit. He nodded. Seraphine was my daughter. Was. She disappeared when she was 2 years and 11 months old. Karis swallowed. From the railway market fire. His eyes narrowed. You searched. Obviously. She touched her necklace. This. Armand looked at it. I commissioned 2 from a jeweler in Avonshire. 1 for your wife. 1 for Seraphine. Karis's breathing became shallow. And the song? Armand looked toward the window. Lenora wrote it. People could have heard her sing it. Possibly. But it was only 8 measures. She never sang it publicly. Karis sat down now. Not because he asked. Because her legs suddenly felt unreliable. What are you saying? Armand chose every word carefully. I'm saying I believe there is enough coincidence that we should find out whether we are biologically related. Karis stared. You think I'm her daughter? I think it's possible. Possible? Yes. She laughed once. Not because anything was funny. This is insane. I know. My entire life. She stopped. Armand waited. I spent years wondering why nobody came looking for me. The sentence struck him visibly. Karis noticed. Her voice sharpened. And now you're telling me someone did? Every day. She looked at him. Armand's control cracked. I searched for you until people stopped returning my calls. I paid investigators who told me I was wasting money. I went to hospitals every time unidentified remains were discovered. I followed frauds who claimed they knew where you were. I kept searching after your mother died. Karis stared. He continued more quietly. If you were Seraphine, there was never one day when you were forgotten. Tears filled her eyes. She hated that. She stood. I need air. Armand immediately moved away from the door. No attempt to stop her. Karis walked outside. For the next 2 days, she did not return. Armand did not call. He wanted to. Otho physically removed the phone from his hand once. Give her space. What if she disappears? She has an apartment. What if she quits? Then she quits. What if? Armand. He stopped. Otho had served him for 25 years. Few people spoke to him with that tone. You cannot control this. Armand looked away. Control had been his survival mechanism for decades. Security. Schedules. Information. Consequences. And now the most important possibility of his life depended on a young woman deciding whether she even wanted an answer. On the 3rd evening, Karis called. I'll do the test. Armand closed his eyes. All right, but independent laboratory. Yes. I choose it. Yes. I get the results directly. Yes. And nobody announces anything. Agreed. A pause. You're agreeing too quickly. I've waited 27 years. His voice softened. I can follow your rules for a week. Karis almost laughed. The samples were collected under documented conditions. Then came the waiting. 6 days. The longest 6 days of Armin's adult life. Karis tried working somewhere else temporarily. She lasted 4 hours before realizing she had cleaned the same table 3 times. Her mind kept moving backward. Her foster mother, Edwina. Had Edwina known? Karis didn't believe so. Edwina had never hidden that she knew little about Karis's origins. She had given Karis the surname Belden when eventually becoming her foster guardian. She had saved every document from before they met. Karis pulled out the box. Old medical notes. Social worker reports. Police forms. A faded intake sheet. Then one detail caught her attention. Person who delivered child to bus terminal aid office. Morris Isle. Karis had seen the name before. It had never meant anything. Now she searched it. Nothing useful. Then she searched through archive documents attached to the Kestrel disappearance. One old article mentioned a household employee who vanished shortly after Seraphine disappeared. Morris Isle. Former assistant to Lenora Kestrel. Karis froze. This wasn't coincidence anymore. She called Armand. Do you know Morris Isle? Silence. Why? She brought me to the authorities. Armand stood so quickly his chair fell backward. What? The intake report. Send it. Karis photographed the page. Armand received it. His face changed. Otho entered his office. What happened? Armand showed him. Otho went pale. Mora. Find her. Otho hesitated. Armand. She disappeared 27 years ago. Find her anyway. The investigation reopened privately. Morris Isle had not vanished completely. She changed names, moved repeatedly, and died 11 years earlier. But investigators found something else. Bank transfers. Large ones. Made in the months after Seraphine disappeared. The money came from a shell company. The company had been controlled by someone inside Armin's father's organization. Someone Armand had trusted since youth. Varric Dane. Armin's godfather. Former consigliere. Now retired. Still alive. Armand stared at the records. No. Otho said nothing. Varric had been beside Armand when Seraphine vanished. He organized searches, hired investigators, comforted Lenora, attended her funeral, told Armand for years that he had to accept his daughter was gone. And now money connected to him had reached the woman who delivered an unidentified toddler to authorities 60 miles away. Before Armand could confront him, the DNA results arrived. Karis opened them alone. She read the first page, then the second. Her vision blurred before she reached the conclusion. Probability of biological parentage. Greater than 99.99%. She sat motionless. For 26 years, she had been Karis Belden. Now a laboratory report told her she had been born Seraphine Kestrel. She expected some dramatic transformation. Nothing happened. Her apartment remained tiny. A kettle whistled. Traffic moved outside. The scar on her knee from falling off a bicycle at 12 remained. Her favorite mug was still chipped. Karis was still Karis. But somewhere across the city, a man she had known for less than 2 weeks was her father. She called. Armand answered on the first ring. Karis. She couldn't speak. He understood. You got it. Yes. Another silence. Then Karis whispered. You're my father. Armand sat down. Yes. Neither knew what to say after that. Eventually Karis laughed through tears. This is extremely awkward. Armand laughed too. A broken sound. Yes. I don't know what I'm supposed to call you. You don't have to call me anything different. You're not going to make me become Seraphine? His answer came immediately. No. That mattered more than she expected. Seraphine was the child we lost. You are Karis. You built that life. I won't take your name away from you simply because I found mine connected to it. Karis cried harder. Can I come over? Armand closed his eyes. Anytime. She arrived 40 minutes later. For once, no staff announcement. No security protocol. Armand waited inside the entrance hall. Karis entered. They stared at each other. Then she walked forward. Armand didn't move until she did. Karis hugged him. His arms closed around her. 27 years collapsed. The mansion staff quietly disappeared. Otho turned away. Armand pressed one hand against the back of his daughter's head. He had imagined this moment thousands of times. In every fantasy, Seraphine was still a little girl. He never imagined finding a grown woman. Someone with scars he hadn't comforted. Birthdays he missed. School performances he never attended. Heartbreaks he knew nothing about. A life that happened without him. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Karis pulled back. "For what?" "Everything I missed. You didn't choose to miss it. I should have found you. You searched. It wasn't enough." She looked at him. "I'm here." That silenced him. The reunion did not instantly become easy. Karis did not move into the mansion. Armand offered. She refused. He offered her a car. She refused. A bank account? Absolutely not. "Stop trying to buy 27 years in one afternoon," she told him. Armand stared. "I'm not buying anything. You offer me a house. You need more space. My apartment has space. Your kitchen is the size of a wardrobe. It is efficient. It is criminal." Karis raised an eyebrow. "Interesting choice of word from you." Otho walked out of the room before laughing. Armand learned. Slowly, he stopped offering things. Instead, he asked questions. What did Karis like? History podcasts, spicy food, old mystery novels, bad reality television she denied watching. She had trained as a hotel services supervisor, but left a previous job after management repeatedly passed her over despite strong performance. Temporary housekeeping paid bills while she searched for something better. When Armand offered to make her a director in one of his companies, she nearly threw a cushion at him. "I don't know anything about shipping. You can learn." "I don't want to learn because my biological father owns it." Fair. Eventually, Karis accepted a management position at an independent heritage hotel. She earned it through interviews without using the Kestrel name. Armand was ridiculously proud. Then came the harder question. Who took her? Varric Dane agreed to meet Armand at an old private club. Karis insisted on attending. "No." She stared at her father. "You don't get to say no. Karis, this is my life. He may be dangerous. So are you." Armand had no response. Otho looked impressed. They compromised. The meeting took place at Kestrel House with attorneys and security nearby. Varric arrived walking with a cane. 79. Still elegant. Still confident. Then he saw Karis. His face changed. Not surprise. Recognition. Armand saw it. "You knew." Varric sat down. "I suspected." Karis remained standing. "My name was Seraphine Kestrel." Varric looked at her. "Yes." Armand's hand tightened. "Tell us everything." Varric sighed. 27 years earlier, Armand's father, Cassian Kestrel, had been at war with a rival faction. Cassian believed Armand's desire to leave the criminal organization made him vulnerable. Lenora intended to take Seraphine and move abroad temporarily. Cassian refused. Then the railway market fire created chaos. Varric saw an opportunity. He ordered Morrisile to take the child away from the scene. Not to kill her. To hide her. Cassian believed that losing his daughter would force Armand to remain dependent on the family organization and abandon plans to leave. Karis stared. "My grandfather had me kidnapped." Varric lowered his eyes. "Yes." Armand looked ready to explode. Karis spoke first. "Why wasn't I returned?" Varric hesitated. "Cassian died unexpectedly 11 months later. Then return me." Varric looked at Armand. "By then Lenora was ill. Your father's enemies were still active. I convinced myself keeping the child hidden was safer." Armand's voice became cold. "You convinced yourself?" "I made a terrible decision. You let me bury an empty coffin." Varric looked away. "You watched my wife die believing her daughter was gone." "I know. You hired investigators." "I know. You stood beside me." Varric's voice broke. "I know." Armand stepped forward. Karis grabbed his sleeve. "Don't." He looked at her. She shook her head. "Not forgiveness. Control." Varric continued. "Mora was supposed to raise Seraphine under another identity. But she panicked. She left the child at the bus terminal and disappeared." Karis felt sick. Everything about her childhood had begun as a chain of powerful adults deciding they knew what was best for her. Her grandfather, Varric, Mora. Nobody had asked what would happen to the child left behind. Karis looked at Varric. "You want me to hate you?" He seemed surprised. "I deserve it." "Maybe. She stepped closer. But I'm not giving you that much space in my life. Varric stared. You stole my childhood from my father. You stole his daughter from him. You stole my mother from me. Her voice trembled. But you're not taking my future too. Varric lowered his head. Armand looked at Karis. Again, he saw Lenora. Not in her face. In the strength. Evidence was eventually turned over to authorities regarding the historical kidnapping and related fraud. Because decades had passed, some legal questions were complicated. Some people were dead. Records were incomplete. Karis didn't build her healing around whether every consequence felt sufficient. She had already learned that justice and emotional closure were not always the same thing. What mattered more was rebuilding what remained. Armand showed her photographs. Hundreds. Karis as Seraphine. First birthday. First steps. Sleeping beside Lenora. Holding a wooden spoon. Laughing inside a garden. One photograph made Karis stop. She was sitting on her mother's lap. Both wore silver bird necklaces. Karis touched her pendant. She loved me. Armand looked shocked. More than anything. I don't remember her. I know. Tell me. So he did. Lenora hated formal dinners. Loved orange blossoms. Sang badly. Could never keep houseplants alive. Read the final page of mystery novels early because she hated suspense. Karis laughed. I do that. Armand stared. Seriously? Every time. He smiled. There you are. Karis's expression softened. Not Seraphine. Not entirely. But something inherited. A thread connecting two lives. Months passed. Karis continued working. She remained plus size. That detail mattered less and less in the household as people actually got to know her. But outside, tabloids discovered the story. Mafia billionaire finds lost daughter working as maid. Some articles were cruel. Some focused on her body. Others implied she had manipulated Armand. Karis hated them. One evening, she threw her phone onto the sofa. Apparently, I have been secretly planning this since infancy. Armand frowned. What? This article says my employment at your mansion was suspicious. You were assigned by a staffing agency. I know. Should I purchase the newspaper? Karis stared. No. Then close it. No. Then what do you want? She paused. That was almost healthy. Armand looked offended. I am frequently healthy. You once tried buying an entire apartment building because my landlord delayed fixing a lift. The lift was unsafe. You tried buying the building. It seemed efficient. Karis laughed. That became their relationship. Imperfect. Teasing. Occasionally painful. Real. A year after the DNA test, Kestrel House hosted an event for employees and their families. Not politicians. Not business partners. Employees. Housekeepers. Drivers. Gardeners. Security. Cooks. Maintenance staff. Karis had suggested it after remembering how invisible she felt during her 4 days cleaning there. She stood near the same staircase where Armand first heard the lullaby. A temporary maid approached her. You were really cleaning here when he recognized you? Karis smiled. Yes. What did he say? Seraphine. Did you know? Not even slightly. The woman hesitated. Can I ask something rude? You can ask. I may not answer. Did it bother you that people kept calling you the plus-size maid in the news? Karis considered it. Yes. Because you're not? Karis laughed. Oh, I am plus-size. She gestured toward herself. That part isn't a secret. Then why? Because it was treated like the most interesting thing about me. The woman nodded. Karis continued. My size didn't make me less likely to be someone's daughter. It didn't make me less intelligent, less deserving of respect, or more shocking to find in a wealthy family. She smiled. I was a maid. I was plus size. And I was his daughter. All three things can be true without one diminishing the others. Behind them, Armand heard. He didn't interrupt. Later that evening, father and daughter stood on the balcony overlooking the gardens. Do you regret finding out? He asked. Karis looked at him. Sometimes. The answer surprised him. She smiled. You expected something sentimental. Yes. I regret the pain. I regret learning what happened to my mother. I regret knowing someone deliberately separated us. She paused. But do I regret knowing you? Armand waited. No. His shoulders relaxed. Karis continued. My life before you was real. Edwina was my mother in every way that mattered while she was alive. My friends are real. My memories are real. You finding me didn't erase Karis Belden. I know, but it gave me something else. What? Context. She looked toward the windows. I finally know why my necklace existed. Why I knew that lullaby without knowing where it came from. Why there was no family history anyone could give me. She touched his hand. And I know someone searched. Armand looked away. That still hurt. Karis squeezed his fingers. You didn't stop loving a child because you couldn't find her. No. And I didn't stop being your daughter because I didn't know your name. Armand looked at her. For a man who controlled boardrooms, companies, and dangerous men, words failed him often around Karis. She seemed to enjoy that. Speechless again, frequently around you. Good. Years later, Armand retired from most daily operations of his legitimate companies. He also continued dismantling what remained of the criminal structure he had inherited. Karis never joined that world. He never asked her to. That boundary became one of the healthiest parts of their relationship. She eventually became general manager of the Heritage Hotel where she had started after leaving housekeeping. Not because Armand purchased it. He offered. She threatened to change her phone number. He withdrew. Instead, he attended the hotel's reopening after Karis led a major renovation. He sat in the front row. No speech. No public announcement. Just her father watching. Afterward, an employee approached him. You must be proud. Armand looked across the room. Karis was laughing with her staff. Yes. Because she turned out to be your daughter? Armand shook his head. No. Because of what she became before either of us knew. That was the truth. Karis's value had not begun when Armand recognized the necklace. She had survived foster care, built friendships, worked, failed, started again, learned, loved, grieved, laughed. She was already a whole person before the powerful father entered the picture. Finding him answer questions, it did not create her worth. On Lenora's birthday each year, Armand and Karis developed a tradition. They cooked dinner themselves. Poorly. The first year, smoke filled the kitchen. The second, Karis set off the alarm. By the third, household staff quietly kept emergency food ready. After dinner, Armand told one story about Lenora that Karis had never heard. There were enough stories to last years. One night, Karis asked, "Do you think she would recognize me?" Armand stared at her. Immediately. "Ow, you hum when you concentrate." Karis smiled. "The lullaby? Always. I didn't know I did that." "I know." She became quiet, then started humming. For notes. Pause. 3 notes. The rising ending. Armand closed his eyes. The same melody that had stopped him in the entrance hall years earlier. The song he thought had died with Lenora. The song that crossed 27 years through the memory of a child too young to remember where she learned it. When Karis finished, Armand looked at her. "You know what I thought the first day? That you'd seen a ghost?" "Yes." She laughed. "I probably looked terrified. You looked annoyed. I was cleaning. You broke my concentration. You broke a glass. You were expensive from the beginning." She smiled. Then her expression softened. "What did you really think?" Armand looked toward the old family photographs. "I thought if I moved, you might disappear again." Karis's eyes filled. She reached across the table. "I'm not going anywhere." Armand held her hand. This time he believed it. That was how the impossible story of the Kestrel family eventually became something quieter. Not a mafia legend. Not a story about wealth. Not even primarily about a lost child. It became a story about identity. About how a person can discover where they came from without surrendering who they became. About a father learning that finding his daughter did not mean owning her future. And about a daughter realizing that being lost had never meant being unwanted. The day Armand Kestrel froze inside his mansion, he thought he had recognized Seraphine. In one sense, he had. The necklace, the lullaby, the eyes, the DNA, they all led back to the missing child. But the woman standing before him was not simply the toddler he had lost. She was Karis, a grown woman, a professional, a foster daughter who had loved Edwina Belden. A plus-size maid temporarily cleaning an enormous mansion because life sometimes placed people in jobs that said nothing about the limits of who they were. Armand could not recover the years he missed. He could not undo Lenora's grief. He could not give Karis the childhood she should have had. What he could do was something far less dramatic and far more difficult. He could know her now, respect her now, listen now, show up now. And for Karis, that became enough. Not everything, but enough to begin. So if this story kept you watching, subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories about hidden identities, family secrets, unexpected reunions, courage, and second chances that arrive when nobody expects them. And before you go, tell me in the comments which moment stayed with you most. Was it when Armand first heard the plus-size Maid humming the private lullaby his late wife had written for their missing daughter? Was it when Karis discovered the childhood photograph showing Seraphine wearing the exact same silver bird pendant around her neck? Was it the DNA result proving beyond doubt that the maid cleaning Kestrel House was actually the daughter Armand had searched for 27 years? Or was it the confrontation where Karis finally faced the man who had helped steal her childhood and told him he would not be allowed to steal her future too? Like the video and share this story with someone who believes a person's job, appearance, or circumstances never tell the whole story of who they are. Because when Armand Kestrel first saw Karis cleaning his staircase, everyone else saw a temporary maid. He saw a necklace. He heard a song. And somewhere beneath 27 years of grief, a father recognized the daughter his heart had never truly stopped waiting for.